Well, as sportsmen and conservationists celebrate the Senate's passage this week of the Great American Outdoors Act, ranchers are criticizing the U.S. Senate for what they call an irresponsible passage of land-grabbing legislation. Now, shortly after the vote on Wednesday, I talked with NCBA Executive Director of Natural Resources and Public Lands Council Executive Director Kaitlynn Glover.
You know, with a name like the Great American Outdoors Act, it's hard to imagine that anyone would oppose. But for this kind of bill, the devil is in the details. The bill is a combination of a few different efforts over the last few years. One side of the bill took care of some of the deferred maintenance of the land management agencies, and the other side of the bill turned the Land and Water Conservation Fund into mandatory funding. So those two things together are particularly problematic because on one hand, you say, look, you know, the agencies can't maintain the land and the water that they already own, they already care for, and then you give the agencies more money into perpetuity to buy more land and water resources under LWCF. For our rural communities, that's a problem.
And she also explained where livestock organizations like ASI, NCBA, and PLC go from here.
Well, so there are a couple other hurdles that the bill has to go through before it becomes law. Unfortunately, I don't think that there is much of a chance of changing the bill before it hits the president's desk. But that doesn't mean that the discussion is over. For groups like PLC and ASI and NCBA, we will have an opportunity to remind Congress that they still have a congressional oversight responsibility for each of the land acquisitions in the future. Additionally, it's why it's so important to have such a good relationship with the agencies here in Washington, D.C., because we're going to be able to work with them, and we will work with them to make sure that any future land acquisitions are not harmful to our ranching communities, to our rural communities.
Now, the Great American Outdoors Act passed the U.S. Senate by a 73-25 vote, garnering widespread bipartisan support. It now moves over to the U.S. House of Representatives before it can head to the president's desk to be signed into law.